Well, God told Noah to build an ark. He said it's gonna rain. It's gonna be dark. So call the animals two by two. And don't let a sinful man go through. So the flood came just like he said. And every evil thing on earth was dead. But Noah's faith was like a rock. God laid his ark on a mountain top. He'll be a friend and guide you. He'll walk along with you. Ah, you'll feel it's true there inside you. He'll help you make it through. When things looked dark, Noah saw the light, 'cause faith had told him right was might. If you need a friend, he'll guide you. He'll be a friend to you. Well, you've heard of Samson, the strong man, the mightiest man in all the land. There was one purpose for his might. He had delivered the Israelites. By the Philistines he was overcome. They had tied him up to carry him home. But Samson prayed and his bonds were gone. And he killed 1,000 with an old jawbone. He'll be a friend and guide you. He'll walk along with you. You'll feel it there inside you. He'll help you make it through. God showed Samson what to do, and it's the same God that stands by you. If you need a friend, he'll guide you. He'll be a friend to you. Hello, and welcome to the Bible with Briscoe. I'll be your narrator, Shenandoah Briscoe, and we are going to get through the Bible in 1 year. Today is day 43, and we're going to be reading Leviticus 13, Matthew 26, 26 through 50. Father, I just ask for purity in voice and articulation, so that this translation may be a blessing for you and all of those who are listening in Jesus' mighty name. Amen. And they all said, Amen. Regulations about defiling skin disease. Leviticus 13. The Lord said to Moses and Aaron, when anyone has a swelling or a rash or a shiny spot on their skin that may be a defiling skin disease, they must be brought to Aaron the priest or to one of his sons, who is a priest. The priest is to examine the sore on the skin, and if the hair in the sore has turned white, and the sore appears to be more than skin deep, it is a defiling skin disease. And when the priest examines that person, he shall pronounce them ceremonially unclean. If the shiny spot on the skin is white but does not appear to be more than skin deep, and their hair in it has not turned white, the priest is to isolate the affected persons for 7 days. On the seventh day, the priest is to examine them, and he has if he sees that the sore is unchanged and has not spread in the skin, he is to isolate them for another 7 days. On the seventh day, the priest is to examine them again, and if the sore has faded and has not spread in the skin, the priest shall pronounce them clean. It is only a rash. They must wash their clothes, and they will be clean. But if the rash does not spread, or if the rash does spread in their skin after they have shown themselves to the priest to be pronounced clean, they must appear before the priest again. The priest is to examine that person, and if the rash has spread in the skin, he shall pronounce them unclean. It is a defiling skin disease. When anyone has a defiling skin disease, they must be brought to the priest. The priest is to examine them, and if there is a white swelling in the skin that has turned the hair white, and if there is raw flesh in the swelling, it is a chronic skin disease that the priest shall pronounce them unclean. He is not to isolate them because they are already unclean. If the disease breaks out all over their skin and, so far as the priest can see, it covers all the skin of the affected person from head to foot, the priest is to examine them. And if the disease has covered their whole body, he shall pronounce them clean, since it has all turned white. They are clean. But whenever raw flesh appears on them, they will be unclean. When the priest sees the raw flesh, he shall pronounce them unclean. The raw flesh is unclean. They have a defiling disease. If the raw flesh changes and turns white, they must go to the priest. The priest is to examine them, and if the sores have turned white, the priest shall pronounce the affected person clean. Then they will be clean. When someone has a boil on their skin and it heals, in the place where the boil was, a white swelling or reddish white spot appears, they must present themselves to the priest. The priest is to examine it, and if it appears to be more than skin deep, and their hair in it has turned white, the priest shall pronounce that person unclean. It is a defiling skin disease that has broke out where the boil was. But if when the priest examines it, there is no white hair in it, and it is not more than skin deep, and has faded, then the priest is to isolate them for 7 days. If it's spreading, if it is spreading in the skin, the priest shall pronounce them unclean. It is a skin defiling disease. But if the spot is unchanged and has not spread, it is only a scar from the boil, and the priest shall pronounce them clean. I've got an itchy nose, folks. Trying to use my mustache to scratch it, because if I reach up and scratch it with my hand, I'm liable to pull my headset completely off. Sorry about that. When someone has a burn on their skin, and a reddish white or white spot appears on the raw flesh of the burn, the priest is to examine the spot, and if their hair in it has turned white, and it appears to be more than skin deep, it is a defiling disease that has broke out on the burn. The priest shall pronounce the person unclean. If a defiling skin disease, if it is a defiling skin disease. But if the priest examines it and there is no white hair in the spot, and it is not more than skin deep and has faded, then the priest is to isolate them for 7 days. On the seventh day, the priest is to examine that person, and if it is spreading in the skin, the priest shall pronounce them unclean. It is a defiling skin disease. If, however, the spot is unchanged and has not spread in the skin, but has faded, it is a swelling from the burn, and the priest shall pronounce them clean. It is only a scar from the burn. If a woman has a sore on their head or chin, the priest is to examine the sore, and if it appears to be more than skin deep, and the hair in it is yellow and thin, the priest shall pronounce them unclean. It is a defiling skin disease, and on the head or chin. But if when the priest examines the sore it does not seem to be more than skin deep, and there is no black hair in it, then the priest is to isolate the affected person for 7 days. On the seventh day, the priest is to examine the sore, and if it has not spread, and there is no yellow hair in it, and it does not appear to be more than skin deep, then the then the man or woman must shave themselves, except for the affected area, and the priest is to keep them isolated for another 7 days. On the seventh day, the priest is to examine the sore, and if it has not spread in the skin and appears to be more than skin deep, the priest shall pronounce them clean, and they must wash their clothes, and they will be clean. But if the sore does spread and the skin after they are in the skin after they are pronounced clean, the priest is to examine them, and if he finds that the sore has spread in the skin, he does not need to look for yellow hair. They are unclean. If, however, the sore is unchanged so far as the priest can see, and if black hair has grown in it, the affected person is healed, and they are clean, and the priest shall pronounce them clean. When a man or a woman has white spots on the skin, the priest is to examine them, and if the spots are dull white, it is a harmless rash that has broken out on the skin. They are clean. A man who has lost his hair and is bald is clean. If he has lost his hair from the front of his scalp and has a bald forehead, he is clean. But if he has a reddish whitish sore on his bald head or forehead, it is a defiling disease breaking out on his head or forehead. The priest is to examine him, and the swollen sore on the head or forehead is reddish white like a defiling skin disease. The man is diseased and is unclean. The priest shall pronounce him unclean because of the sore on his head. Anyone with such a defiling disease must wear torn clothes, let their hair be unkempt, cover the lower part of their face, and cry out, "Unclean, unclean." As long as they have the disease, they remain unclean. They must live alone, and they must live outside of the camp. Regulations about defiling molds. As far as fabric that is spoiled with a defiling mold, any woolen or linen cloth, any woven or knitted material of linen or wool, any leather or anything made of leather, if the affected area in the fabric, the leather, the woven or knitted material, or any leather article is greenish or reddish, it is a defiling mold and must be shown to the priest. So I figured. And the priest is to examine the affected area and isolate the article for 7 days. On the seventh day, he is to examine it, and if the mold has spread in the fabric, the wooden, the woven, or knitted material, or the leather, whatever it uses, it is whatever it uses, it is a persistent defiling mode. The article is unclean. He must burn the fabric, the woven or knitted material of wool or linen, or any other linen or any leather article that has been spoiled, because the defiling food mold is persistent and the article must be burned. But if when the priest examines it, the mold has not spread in the fabric, the woven or knitted material, or the leather articles, he shall Or But if when the priest examines it and the mold has not spread it in the fabric, the woven or knitted material, or the leather articles, he shall order that the spoiled article it be washed. Then he is to isolate it for another 7 days. After article has been washed, and the priest is to examine it again. And if the mold has not got changed, it appears through though even though it has not spread, it is unclean. Burn it, no matter which side of the fabric has been spoiled. If you, if when the priest examines it at the material, if when the priest examines it, the mold has faded after the article has been washed, he is to tear the spoiled part of the fabric, the leather, or the woven knitted material. But if it reappears in the fabric, in the woven or knitted material, or in the leather articles, it is a spreading mold, whatever, a shivering mold, whatever kind of mold must be burned. Any fabric woven or knitted material or any leather article that has been washed and is rid of mold must be washed again, then it will be clean. These are the regulations concerning defiling molds in woolen or linen, pronouncing them clean or unclean. Okay, Matthew 26 through 50. While they were eating, Jesus took bread, and when he had given thanks, he broke it and gave it to his disciples, saying, take and eat. This is my body. Then he took a cup, and when he had given thanks, he gave it to them, saying, drink from it, all of you. This is my blood of the covenant, which is poured out for many for the forgiveness of sins. I tell you, I will not drink from this fruit of the vine from now on until that day when I drink it anew with you in my Father's kingdom. When they had sung a hymn, they went out to the Mount of Olives. Jesus predicts Peter's denial. Then Jesus told them, this very night you will all fall away on account of me, for it is written, I will strike the shepherd, and the sheep of the flock will be scattered. But after I have risen, I will go ahead of you into Galilee. Peter replied, even if all fall away on account of you, I never will. Truly, I tell you, Jesus answered, this very night before the rooster crows, you will disown me 3 times. But Peter declared, even if I have to die with you, I will never disown you. And all the other disciples said the same. Gethsemane. Then Jesus went with his disciples to a place called Gethsemane, and he said to them, sit here while I go over there and pray. He took Peter and the 2 sons of Zebedee along with him, and he began to sorrowful and troubled. Began to be sorrowful and troubled. Then he said to them, my soul is overwhelmed with sorrow to the point of death. Stay here and keep watch with me. Going a little further, he fell with his face to the ground and prayed, my Father, if it is possible, may this cup be taken from me,
Yet not as I will, but as you will. Then he returned to his disciples and found them sleeping. Couldn't you men keep watch for me for 1 hour? He asked Peter. Watch and pray so that you will not fall into temptation. The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. He went away a second time and prayed, My Father, if it is not possible for this cup to be taken away unless I drink it, may your will be done. When he came back, he again found them sleeping because their eyes were heavy. So he left them and went away once more and prayed, the third time saying the same thing. Then he returned to the disciples and said to them, Are you still sleeping and resting? Look, the hour has come, and the Son of Man is delivered into the hands of sinners. Rise, let us go. Here comes my betrayer. Jesus is arrested. While he was still speaking, Judas, one of the 12, arrived. One of the 12 arrived. With him was a large crowd armed with swords and clubs, sent from the chief priests and the elders of the people. Now the betrayer had arranged a signal with them. The one I kiss is the man. Arrest him. Going at once to Jesus, Judas said, Greetings, Rabbi, and kissed him. Jesus replied, Do what you have come for, friend. Then the men stepped forward, seized Jesus, and arrested him. That brings us to the end of the Bible with Briscoe for today. And tomorrow we will be covering Leviticus 14, Matthew 26:51 through 75. Father, I just pray that this was a blessing to you, and also I pray that it was a blessing to everyone who listened, and that all of you come back tomorrow, and we will continue with the Bible with Briscoe. And in the meanwhile, have a blessed day in Jesus' mighty name. Amen. And they all said, Amen.